everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I want to speak on the case of missing Nancy Ng. She went missing in Guatemala, and there's very little about the story. There's been a few media articles and some television appearances by her parents, and the Guatemalan authorities have said she drowned in Lake Atitlán while she was kayaking. The family does not buy that story, and now the internet is, as the internet does, just deciding what they think happened to her. And I want to talk about the different possibilities as a criminal profile, how I would look at this case. And I also want to bring in my own experience in Guatemala at this very lake, Lake Atitlán. And so I want you to stick around for this because I've been to Lake Atitlán twice, 1979 for a honeymoon, and in 2012 I returned solo and spent time there. So I know the lake, I know what goes on in the lake, and some of what goes on at that lake, as far as people coming to visit, may have something to do with her death. So I want to give you some insight into this. And so let's see what happened with Nancy Ng and how I can clear up some of the things and then also suggest what other possibilities there are. All right, so the story is a wee bit strange. Let me show you Lake Atitlán, first of all. It's in Guatemala, and it looks like this. If that isn't stunning, I don't know what is. Absolutely beautiful place. Here's some more pictures of it. Isn't this gorgeous? This is from one of the yoga places where you can actually do yoga and look out on this. Gorgeous. She had been there last year for a yoga retreat, and she loved it so much, she returned this year. Now, let me read you a little bit from the New York Post article, which is pretty horribly written. So I apologize for that, but there is very poor information on this case. But I want you to have the basics from the media outlets. Relatives of the California woman who vanished during a yoga retreat in Guatemala have released a haunting last video, and that's this video, of her paddling from shore in a kayak, and she's waving bye-bye and looking happy, while challenging local authorities who believe she then drowned. So there is a video of her in the kayak, and her kayak was found later without her, and her body has not been found. And so they're wondering what the heck has happened. Now let's look further. Nancy Ng, 29 years old, and that's important as far as some of the theories out there, of Monterey Park, was seen smiling and waving from a kayak on October 19th, shortly before she disappeared while staying near Lake Atitlán, as seen in the footage shared with Good Morning America. The Guatemalan prosecutor's office said that a woman, now this is where it gets poorly written because it's the Post, the prosecutor's office said that a woman with Ng told authorities that they had advanced, quote, approximately 2 kilometers deeper into the lake, which makes very little sense. I'm not really sure quite what that means, but further into the lake than perhaps they should have gone. Where the missing woman, and this is where it's so horribly written, actually says, she decided she wanted to go swimming, and so she got out of the kayak. She wants to swim. It's very vague, all right. And why would she get out of the kayak? Now, I don't know what the temperature exactly at that time in the lake was. She wasn't wearing any kind of a safety vest of any sort. So she would just get out and swim about. It's hard to get in and out of kayaks, but some people might be able to do that. They flip their kayak over. They know how to get back in. I don't know how good she was at that. I don't know how cold the water was. I don't know what happened. And apparently nobody else knows what happened, because here's a weird thing. And that is when she drowns, the prosecutors told ABC News, with rescuers saying they found her empty kayak. However, Ng's family refuses to believe that simple explanation, claiming it took more than 24 hours for her disappearance to be reported, with others still not telling what they know. So the story about the woman who says she was with her, I guess in a different kayak, and says she wanted to swim, did she kayak away and let her swim by herself and ignore her? I mean, the story is very vague. So I don't know what the family actually knows. This is the media, and we never always get a proper story from the media. All right, so now let me explain the area so you can see the possibilities. Already on the internet, there are claims that she has been kidnapped into the sex trade. No, she hasn't. She does not. First of all, she's 29. when they kidnap you in the sex trade. They like you to be about 18, maybe 16, maybe 13, but not 29. And she's also an American, and she's a tourist, and you don't want to start a big international incident. So it's not a wise thing when you have other choices. So no, she wasn't kidnapped in the sex trade. 2, her kidneys were stolen, because this seems to be a new thing. Now, are kidneys ever sold to people with money? Yes, this is true, especially very poor people have sometimes sold a kidney so they can make money. Has anybody ever been kidnapped to have a kidney removed? Yes, but it's not so often, and certainly not in Lake Atitlán. All right, so these are nonsense things. So either she drowned and they haven't found her body yet, they've done a lot of searching, or something else contributed to her death. So I want to look at this area because I think this is what people don't understand about what's going on around there. Now, she was a teacher back in California. She taught special needs students. She loved yoga. She liked physical activities. She was a fitness person. Seemed like a truly happy person, and she loved yoga. And she had been to this place in Lake Atitlán a year ago and thought, oh my God, this place is gorgeous. I want to go back. And so she did. Now, what kind of place is Lake Atitlán? As I showed you, just stunningly beautiful. All right. So let me show you a picture of it. This is a map of it. And Lake Atitlán it's kind of an isolated spot. You could drive there. You can take a bus there. I've never driven there. I've taken buses both times. It's quite a distance. And, you don't just drop in from the airport. I mean, it's a place you really want to go to. And there are 3 main parts of it, which I want to point out. There's a place called Panajachel. Panajachel is the main where you come in with the bus. And it's got the bigger hotels, and more hotels, fancier hotels. It's still not super fancy, but there are a couple of really nice ones there. And you've got more things to do. So this is where the non-backpacker tourists go. All right. And then you have a place over to your left called San Marcos La Laguna, which we just call San Marcos. And then straight down, you'll see San Pedro La Laguna. Now, if you come into Panajachel, then you take the launch over to one of the other locations. And let me just show you a couple quick pictures. This is a part of the area of Panajachel, which I stayed at during my honeymoon there. And then this is San Marcos, which is where I believe she was staying, although nobody has said where she was staying, which is kind of odd. And then this is the San Pedro place, which is south and on the map of from San Marcos. And San Marcos is very small, and this is big enough to have like the stores and ATMs and things like that, and more bars and stuff. So you still have backpackers here, hippies here, but it's more of a place with more stuff going on as far as as town goes. It's not a city, but as a town goes. This is more of a little hippie joint. And let me read you a couple statements from there. And I want to explain my experience in San Marcos, this place where I think she was, and what might be going on that could influence what happened to her. Now, here's just a couple thoughts from the internet. Where to stay at Lake Atitlán? So when you go to stay at Lake Atitlán, you don't actually stay in a single town. There are several towns by the lake you can hold up for a few days or weeks. Each has a little personality of their own. For example, San Marcos, that's this place that I think she may have stayed at, and that I have stayed at, is a smelly stoner yoga hippieville. It's basically Portland if it were in Guatemala. All right, and this is true, and I'm going to explain my experience in San Marcos. San Pedro, that's the one I said was the bigger place, is a more toned down version of San Marcos, but it's still pretty hippie. And then Panajachel is where most non-backpackers stay. All right. Now, let me read a couple more and then I'll share my experience. I've spent a fair bit of time in Guatemala. It's a strange and beautiful place. It's also got a place called Lake Atitlán. All right. It's quite secluded, and that's what makes it what it is. When last I was there was a rave on an island that only had boats going to it till 10 and boats coming back at 7. DJs, pills, I think that's I don't know if that means DJs. DJs, pills, weed, whatever. A friend of mine went out to dinner with some locals, and after they finished eating, they all dosed themselves and proceeded to trip balls. This is the norm. It's so far away from everything else, nobody really pays it much attention, and so the drug, party, rave culture has flourished. There are fire spinners, hippies, and every other shop sells hummus. which actually is kind of funny because that's true. But the biggest thing is drugs. And here's one more statement, and then I'll tell you my story. The energy of Lake Atitlán has different effects on different people. Some spiral down into an ever-increasing abyss fueled by drugs and alcohol. Others use its energy to elevate toward enlightenment through yoga, meditation, and physical activities around the lake. Ultimately, it is up to you to decide what path to take. All right, so when I returned to Guatemala in 2012, I did some traveling to this. This is me on the buses here. I'm on a chicken bus here, and now I'm staying at this hostel here. I'm going into the mountains at this point. And here's my little backpack sitting there, my room at the hostel in Zela. And this is where in 2012 I spent the end of the world. The Mayan calendar in 2012 was going to be the end of the entire world. So people went down to Tikal in Guatemala, in the middle of the jungle. It's where the pyramids are, and then everybody planned to die there, and then nobody did. But it was one stunningly beautiful place. All right. Unfortunately, I can't find my pictures of Lake Atitlán. I don't know where they went to. Anyway, I was there. And before I went to the end of the world, I went to Lake Atitlán. Now, I arrived at Panajachel. I took that launch. And I said to people, where should I go stay? Because I had a backpack. So they're like, San Marcos, a little hippie town. I'm like, all right, whatever. And so I took the launch to San Marcos. I get out and I go walk up the dock. And now I'm at this little hostel or whatever it was. And I'm not going to say the name of the hostel or the guy who ran it, because first of all, I don't remember. Secondly, I'm not trying to get anybody arrested. Well, anyway, so I arrive, and I can't remember the exact reason I ended up with this guy going to San Pedro, the other location. But I checked in, and I don't know if I needed money and I needed to go to an ATM or whatever, but he said to me, oh, hey, I'm going over to San Pedro, but you can come with me. I'm taking the boat over. Everybody's friendly. His wife is standing there, and I'm an older woman. She wasn't worried about us going off for some fun, and I just met him like 5 minutes before. So I went on the boat and went with him to San Pedro. Now, we get there. I don't know what I said. Maybe I got money. I don't know. I don't remember. But I know that we ended up sitting at a table and getting a couple beers. And then he said, I got to take care of something. And then he disappeared. And I waited a while, having my beer. And he comes back and sits down. And he starts up a little conversation. He says, so what do you do back in the U.S.? And I said, well, I'm a criminal profiler. And he got this weird look on his face. And I said, yes, I know what you were doing. I'm not an idiot here. And he goes, oh, I said, look, I'm in Guatemala. I'm not reporting you to the authorities. So I figured he was making a drug deal, which he's going to bring back to San Marcos. So we finished our beers. And then we got in. Then it was dark. You couldn't take the launch back or the boat back or whatever. There was some reason for that. Let me show you, see if I can see a picture. Okay, so we are down. We're on the bottom of the screen. That's a San Marcos location. And then if you go up around, you can see a little road going around. And then we took that road at night, and we were in a tuk-tuk, which is also, like a motorized rickshaw, which is popular in India, but apparently they use them in Guatemala. It's just that, the guy's driving it, and he's in the front, and you got, 3 wheels, and you're on the back, and that's that. And it's open air. And so we start going around the lake. And as we're going around the lake, the guy puts down the sides, because, usually put them down if it's cold or it's raining. But he put the sides on down so you couldn't see out. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And he says, well, because it's dangerous that you're obviously, well, first of all, white people, and you're not locals, and you can be targets of robbers. And it's like, okay, maybe they knew the guy was a drug dealer. I don't know. But anyway, we got back to the hostel, and I started to my room, and people started offering me weed. And a lot of people you could smell the weed everywhere. It was heavily in weed. So anyway, I said no, because I do not smoke weed. And I wasn't there for that. I was just looking for a cheap place to stay. So anyway, it was very hippieville. And then the next morning, some people told me I had to go to the cacao ceremony. Now, the cacao ceremony is like a chocolate ceremony. And these are very popular. People want to, supposedly you go and you drink this dark chocolate without any sugar in it. And then if you want to, and it's supposed to make you have a spiritual experience, like connecting with something in the universe. And then if you want to have more of an experience, they put in red pepper, so it's hot. Well, I love spice, so I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Anyway, I went to this thing, and it was run by. Let's see if I can find a picture of this fellow. Where is that fellow? Oh, there he is. All right, so yeah, it's one. I don't know, maybe more than one, but I kind of remember this guy. I think it was him. And so went there, and he collects money from the tourists and the yoga people and the people who want to find themselves. And he hands out this crap. I shouldn't say that. He hands out this drink, and I'm drinking, going, okay, it's terrible and it's spicy, but so what? I'm trying to figure out what the deal is here. So, so the other people, he starts going and talking about, well, what are you experiencing? And people start crying, and they're like, oh, it's bringing out the trauma I suffered from. And I'm just sitting there like kind of amazed, because I'm thinking, this is chocolate with some hot sauce in it, dude. I mean, I don't know if everybody else came already stoned, whether they're doing shrooms, whether they're doing, I don't know what they were doing, but they were having experiences I wasn't having. He gets to me and he looks at me and says, and what are you feeling? I said, probably that I should leave before I ruin everybody else's experience. And I just put it down and I just left, because I thought it was silly. But anyway, in this location, San Marcos, there's a lot of drugs. I mean, that's what people come there to explore themselves, to explore life. There's a lot of nudity. There's drink. There is still alcohol. There's a lot of different types of drugs. There's people dancing into the night in certain conditions, shall we say. It's here. I believe since she was going to yoga, was probably this vicinity, but I cannot prove it. But my point is this. She did, I don't know exactly when she went kayaking. The question comes down to this. First of all, did she have any influence by any kind of drugs that were here? Because if you get into a kayak, you can be under the influence of something that might not be the best thing to be under when you're kayaking. The other person that supposedly was in another kayak, God knows if they were under some kind of influence. So it's hard to say whether people's minds were in the right places to be able to make the right choices or to see what was happening, or whether they're just out of it, making poor choices, or not seeing things and returning and saying, I don't even know, because I don't know whether she was under the influence of anything, or the other person who claims, this woman who supposedly saw her but didn't report it, if that's even true, was under the influence of something. Of course, there also comes the possibility that, let's say, she wasn't even under the influence of anything, and maybe she did swim, and maybe she got back in her kayak, and maybe she came up to someplace ashore, and she got off, and something happened to her. Is that possible? Sure. And then the person pushed the boat back out. Could happen. Did she return and then end up something happening back here? With people who were less than honorable, maybe messed up people. I don't know. I mean, most of the time it's pretty happy here, because people are like, they are doing yoga and feeling great about themselves and having it. It's a beautiful place, and whatever they're smoking or imbibing in isn't making them violent or anything. But it's just an area that has drugs, and there are therefore drug dealers. And there are some criminal elements around this area. So it can't be completely ignored. And also it can't be ignored that somebody can, because of the whole atmosphere, could be under the influence of some kind of drugs. I'm not saying she was. I'm just saying we can't ignore that fact. Now, I don't know what the Guatemalan authorities know about, like, exactly when was this video taken. What did the woman actually say that said she said Nancy wanted to go swimming. Did she really say that? Did she see her get in the water? We're not getting any details on. If she said she was going to go swimming, did she go swimming in front of the other woman? Or did she just kayak off by herself? And this is all the information we do not know. But for all the people out on the internet saying she's been kidnapped into the sex trade, getting her kidneys taken, stop that nonsense. Either she drowned in just an unfortunate incident, either because she made a poor decision to get in the water and something went wrong. Maybe she was under the influence of drugs. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she just thought it would be fun to swim around and I don't know. She got in the water and somehow the kayak slipped away from her and she couldn't catch up with it. And the other woman was kayaking away, not realizing she was drowning out there. I don't know. Or did something more nefarious happen? Did she come in contact with another human being and something happened to her? And that's why her body hasn't been found in the lake. And they just pushed the boat out there to make it look like she had drowned. Why supposedly is no one talking from the yoga retreat? Is it because they've been told by the people who run the thing, don't say anything, because as soon as you say something, we're going to get sued. Don't say anything, even if you all didn't do anything wrong, but just don't, let the police handle it. Don't be speaking to the media and to the family. I don't know. I don't know how much of anything is true. Only thing I know is true is Nancy has not been recovered, and it's been 3 weeks. The parents were hoping she'd been kidnapped for ransom, because in certain countries, Mexico and Central America, that does happen. If they know you have money, usually kidnapping a hippie off the retreat, off of San Marcos is not your top choice. Usually you go for somebody you think definitely has more money. Somebody staying in a fancy hotel, business person, those kind of people. But could it have happened? Sure. But nobody's gotten a phone call, so that's not likely. There are always, there's always other possibilities that she was kidnapped and they were going to call and then she died and they accidentally killed her, and so no call was ever made. You can come up with a bunch of stuff. But the authorities so far are saying they believe she drowned. They just haven't found her body, and that is most likely the story. But this is a kind of sketchy place, and there's a lot of drugs. So I said, whether drugs could have influenced decision making or whether something else happened here that was kind of creepy-ish, I don't know. But they just, the ridiculous stuff, the sex trafficking, kidney stealing is just not happening. And this is not a place that has a high crime rate either. It doesn't. It's a fairly, benign place outside of a lot of silly behavior, in my opinion. But some people like silly behavior. And it is extraordinarily beautiful. And if you want to do a yoga thing, you want to sit there and look at that gorgeous scene of Lake Atitlán, you almost can't beat the scenery. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But let's be reasonable about this, and let's wait to see what the Guatemalan authorities do come up with eventually. I feel sorry for the family, because it just seems like one of those things that could that possibly have happened? How could this happen? But I'd say this a lot with wilderness stuff. People sometimes do things that they're not really good at. I don't know how good she was at kayaking, and she didn't have anything on that said you fall out of that boat, you're going to float. She didn't have that on. She didn't put on some kind of device, a floating device. She was putting herself at risk, and you probably shouldn't be in that kayak. Again, I don't know how people just think, oh, this is fun. All you do is do this, but does this, and all you do is lean the wrong way, and you go over. That's why you never do it without a group of people, without safety stuff. You want your life vest on. You want a group of people around you. So if you fall out, you float, and then people can get you. But if you're out there with one other person who's not paying any attention, or even if a person exists, no one can save you. If you're in the middle of that lake, and that lake is huge and very deep, and her body just may be tangled up in something at the bottom, because there's a lot of stuff at the bottom of that. It's very, very deep lake. So personally, what do I think happened? I personally think she drowned. So far, that's all I see. And the only reason I mentioned the drugs and stuff here is just because it might cause people to make poor choices, because I know that people, and that could not necessarily her, could be her, but it could also be the other people around making poor choices, and not remembering things properly, because people were smoking, 6 o'clock in the morning, they were already smoking weed, so God knows, because they feel so free there, because they're not driving, they're just in this place where everybody's love and happiness and huggy and do, meet with nature and yoga and all that stuff and spirituality stuff. And they feel very free. But then, something else could happen. Could be somebody's lying and she never was maybe somebody gave her bad drugs and she passed away and they just stuck her in a kayak and pushed her out and dumped the kayak over. Maybe that woman is lying, that she actually never got in the kayak on her. Well, you see but there's the video. video. You see what I'm saying? There's the video. So this is what the police have to deal with. How much information do they have? Do they have more information that we're getting than the family is telling us and that the media is telling us? So I'm just saying there's other things that could have happened, but we have no any proof that those things did. But I just wanted you to sort of understand the whole area, and Lake Atitlán. It is a beautiful place, and it's very sad that she loved it and went back to it, and probably won't be seen again alive, and it's a real shame. But you gotta be careful, even on vacation. Be careful. So because all kinds of weird stuff can happen, and just in a moment, in a blink of an eye, it can happen. So take care when you travel. Be smart. Be sure you're with other people. Always have witnesses. Always have people around you. It's the safest way to travel, so that you don't get off on some place you shouldn't be, or meet people you shouldn't meet, get lost in the jungle, or fall out of a kayak. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe, and let's see what happens. I would love to say we'd hear good news, but I'm kind of doubting it. Bye-bye.